tech workers, what if AI could give you back an entire day every week? And maybe change the way that your role is structured at the same time, so you do more value-add work rather than just firefighting 5 days a week. Well, my guest today is from Pearson, and together we're going to explore the real-world impact of AI on the tech workforce, and also look at how Pearson, a global lifelong learning company, is helping organisations navigate the shift from job titles to skills, and why that mindset is urgently needed in a world where AI is changing work faster than most companies can keep up. And he's also going to share findings from a new Pearson research that shows roles like system analysts and network architects could reclaim up to 8 hours a week through automation and generative AI. But I don't want to frame this as just another story of displacement. I want to focus on augmentation, how AI can free teams from those nasty repetitive tasks that nobody wants to do, and give them more time to think, collaborate, drive a new strategy. And also discuss the growing demand for what he calls power skills. And by that, I mean communication, adaptability, problem solving, all the things that AI can't master. What makes us great as humans is not doing robotic tasks. It is about those power skills. And it's these capabilities that are becoming just as important as those technical skills. And Pearson's approach emphasises designing jobs around collaboration with AI agents, not just retrofitting them in later. And it's this forward-thinking approach that's already being adopted by innovative firms who are combining HR and tech leadership to drive skills transformation. So as learning becomes a mixture of micro-learning alongside recognised credentials, the expectations on employers are evolving too. They're now seen as responsible for helping to prepare their people, not just to do the job today, but to prepare them to stay ready for what's coming next. So if you're a leader, how do you build your workforce strategy that keeps up with AI while still putting your people first? Well, that is what we're going to be talking about today. So it's time for me to introduce you to today's guest. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, thanks, Neil. Really great to be here. So my current role is looking after enterprise go-to-market for EMEA at Pearson. So that's essentially speaking with large corporates, private sector, public sector organisations across Europe, Middle East and Africa. Before that, though, and I've only been doing that this year, before that I ran strategy and came up with that strategy working with others, how we would enter the workforce skills market. So this area is a big sort of focus for me and has been for a number of years. And then I started off in my life, if you like, in working world as a management consultant at EY for my sins. So yeah, that's what I've been up to.
Oh, fantastic. And at Pearson, for people that are scattered all around the world, maybe hearing about you for the first time, it is known as the world's leading education provider. But how would you describe Pearson's to somebody listening, I don't know, the other side of the US?
Yeah, good question. It's a phenomenal company that I always find out we're doing more than I ever realised, actually. It's one of those organisations that does so much. The simplest way I'd like to think about it, though, is, it's a lifelong learning company. So what I mean by that, I mean, we support people at school, and through school and those types of organisations as you learn. We support learners in universities and colleges across the world, and then we support people in the world of work and as they'll think about corporate learning and as well as sort of skills development and skills skills changes that they're going to make over the course of their career. And that's obviously what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah, and it's such an important topic because obviously we've got so many different areas of education outright banning AI, while there are places or workplaces that are waiting for graduates coming through that have got AI skills. So it's a bit of a mixed bag here. But I'm curious, what was it that sparked Pearson's recent interest in exploring exactly how AI tools like ChatGPT and RPA are actually reshaping the UK tech workforce? And was there anything that surprised you in this data?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I don't think it's a recent interest for us, actually. And if I sort of go back a little bit just to give some context, back in 2021, when we really made waves to think about how we wanted to enter the workforce market. And as I said, I was lucky enough to be part of that thinking and process. when we engage with the problem statement around workforce learning, workforce skills, and we looked at the market, we actually found some really interesting things. And our presentation back to Pearson when we first evolved the strategy was the world doesn't need more learning necessarily. The world needs to understand how to navigate learning and find the right learning or development for an individual or an organization at the right time in the right way to deliver the right outcome. The reason why I say that, obviously, from a Pearson point of view, is interesting because, particularly at a time when we still are heavily a learning company, but actually this is around skills. And so the challenge in the workforce market that we saw was that the unit of economics was slightly wrong. And so if you think about how we make human capital decisions, we make human capital decisions based on, well, what job do you do? Or what was your highest level of education? And those are really amorphous. And if we think about the evolving nature of work, and so we bring it to today, that's changing ever more rapidly than it ever was. You can't make decisions with the changes that are happening going, oh, well, you did a geography degree in 15 years ago, therefore you should be good at, right? It doesn't follow. And so we're really interested in thinking about, okay, what skills do people need for the future? And how do we think about that? How do we think about what you can do, not what you have done? And so when you think about that problem statement, the latest technology that's coming through, it makes us really think closely about, well, okay, what impacts it having on work? How does that mean we need to think differently about how we organize work? How does that mean we need to think about, as individuals, what we need to learn and develop? What skills do we need in order to be successful in the future of work? And so the latest work, as you referenced, was, and the research we did was looking at what's the impact of AI on work, and particularly around five tech roles. And in that, we found, not perhaps surprisingly, but with a little bit more level of granularity, that tech workers could save a day a week over the next few years in work. And so therefore, what does that mean from an organizational point of view?
And I was speaking with the team at NextThink recently. They were talking about how the traditional IT service desk must evolve, and we're heading towards a ticketless support system, and those staff will be focusing on workplace experience and projects and adding value to the business rather than firefighting. And one of the reasons I bring that up is your research highlights that tech workers could actually reclaim nearly a full workday each week. So can you walk me through some of the specific tasks being streamlined or maybe even eliminated so they can focus on those value add activities?
Yeah, of course. And you're absolutely right. We can see a whole day of work being saved. And we think that's really interesting because what you've sort of highlighted a little bit there, it's really interesting that companies, some cases like, oh, well, that's going to remove jobs. We don't think it is removing jobs. We think it's actually just changing the shape of jobs. And so that means you have to think very carefully and very purposely around how you design those work and therefore reskill people and set them up for success. So our latest report focused on key roles like programmers, network architects, system analysts. We have looked more broadly as well across the workforce, but in those particular roles and the tasks that you reference, coding tasks, system troubleshooting, reporting, these are tasks that are getting increasingly automatable. But it means the roles aren't disappearing, right? They're shifting, just as you said. So you're going to have to start thinking about more like AI oversight, governance, infrastructure design, data strategy. The sort of types of things that people are going to be doing is shifting rather than a role completely disappearing.
And I think the skills that we need are going to change as well. I read a great LinkedIn post before you came on the podcast today, and a guy was saying that we're sending kids into a world that's shaped by AI with less preparation than ever because empathy is declining, creativity isn't necessarily being taught, and yet the future belongs to those who can think critically and connect to ideas. There's a lot of work to be done here, isn't there?
100%. And actually, a previous report we did, looking at what were the important skills of the future found, and we, there's different versions of this out there, and ours corroborates many other findings. But it's this importance of, we call them power skills or human skills, that are increasingly going to become more important because technical skills are going to evolve and you'll have to learn and relearn over time. But those human skills, collaboration, leadership, communication, customer service, and when I mean that, I mean, relationship building and those sorts of types of customer service are increasingly important. One thing that we've found so consistent in our research is the need to learn, so that actually, we were born, we had to learn from the moment we were born, and that's been through life. But actually, the world of linear careers, the world of sort of straightforward ladders or staying in one company for long careers is changed, and that puts much more emphasis on the need of learning to learn, so that you can adapt to the speed of change and the technical changes, but it's underpinned by those human characteristics that we referenced before.
100% with you. And if we were to look across the tech industry there, how do you see large language models and RPA differing in their impact that they're causing across such a wide variety of roles, from developers, IT support to data analysts? Are you seeing a lot of big differences there?
Yes, we are. I think that the type of technologies inevitably will have an impact on different tasks, because they do, inherently they do slightly different things. But I'll give you a couple of examples. So, we looked at, as you said, system analysts, computer network architects, etc. So the system analyst role that we looked at, where we identified, 6.8 hours of savings per week, we saw that they have more tasks that were likely to be impacted through the use of LLM chatbots, so large language models underpin chatbots, and this creates space for more strategic application of data insights, helping align tech solutions with business objectives, and supporting the rollout of more complex systems. So that's kind of the system analyst side. On the computer network architect side, the different role that we looked at, that actually we see as being able to be saved 7.8 hours per week against our assessment. And a lot of that is by leveraging RPA, so robotic process automation, to automate things like project reporting, file management, and handling. And then that allows those roles to concentrate much more on higher level work, such as innovating network design, strengthening cyber resilience, or preparing infrastructure for the emerging technology. So although in both cases it leads to automation or augmentation of tasks, and it saves time, it is the application of different technologies. And I think organizations would want to look at, it's not a one technology solution, it's a multi-technology solution that you might want to look at when you're thinking about changing the shape of your workforce.
And I'm curious, if we look at the ongoing skill shortage that we have here in the UK tech sector, how do you see AI tools maybe complementing workforce development rather than competing with it? Because we see a lot of scary stories on our newsfeed, and I don't think it's the full picture, is it?
No, I completely agree with you. I think since we've been talking about this at Pearson and anything we said in the market, actually, we believe that technology is here to augment and support, and as you say, complement the workforce rather than compete. And we see that in many cases, these technologies sort of taking away the more mundane or the more repetitive tasks, albeit now the critical thinking that can come from some of them, and the speed of which change can come. I still think it's a human alongside technology rather than a technology only workforce, and we need to think about how that creates its own shift. But certainly, these technologies require and mean organizations and individuals need to think differently about how they upskill, how they make sure that they're prepared to work alongside and have those skills to be able to operate, the agents, as it were, in the workforce.
And if we take a look inside at any organization, how do you think this shift will impact, or what does it mean for collaboration and teamwork inside tech environments? Do you think we'll see a new kind of division of labor emerge over the next few years?
Well, so I do actually, and we can see that in a number of ways. I think the division of labour will be not just shifting what humans do and between humans, but also what technology does and between technologies. And certainly, as wherever you turn, with sort of leading thinkers in space now, you see and hear about what's the role of the agents. What's the agent to human ratio? How do humans work with agents? I think it was Roland Bush, CEO at Siemens, talked about, is this the last generation of leaders who will only manage humans? And actually, we need to think about how do we, as organizations, design work and design roles that work alongside and with agents. And so that I think to division of labour is going to be quite interesting. I don't know, I'm sure people on this podcast have probably heard before, but if they haven't, the change that Moderna has made around combining their HR and tech organizations, because they see, it's another illustration of how these two worlds are coming together in order to drive outputs for a particular company. So yeah, I see a big shift coming there, and how we adapt to that and how we land that is going to be critical for any major organization looking to be successful in the future.
And to give anyone listening that valuable takeaway from listening to this episode today, if there's a tech leader listening, what should they be doing to maybe rethink job design and training strategies in light of these AI-driven changes? Because the old way is not going to cut it for much longer. So what should they be doing differently, and what should they be thinking about as we move forward?
So I think the first thing is to try and understand. Right, seek to understand. I think that's always the first challenge any leader needs to do. And from an organization, it's the same point. Right, how do you know what's the best way you can think about the impact of this and future technologies coming? And the work we've done essentially maps 32 different technologies against an adoption curve in different countries, different industries, and that allows us to look quite at a granular level what tasks are likely to be impacted by what technologies. So that helps us sort of provide that, okay, I'm not suggesting we can see into the future, but at least it gives us a level of science and maturity and analysis that gives a better view. So that gives you an idea of the understanding. What you then need to think about is, okay, if we now know which roles are going to be most impacted, we can start to think about, well, how should we look at those roles in the future, and how should we think about them being organized? I think that becomes a really important step in any organization as they move. The last thing I'll say, though, is in doing that, I also think you have to maintain a level of agility and fluidity around your organization. And the way I'm starting to think about this is actually, how do you make sure you've got the right capabilities, and how do you make sure you've got the right readiness so that you can then move your organization around to deal with the next change? Because what I think we're seeing is the half-life of change is getting shorter. And so you actually need some core capabilities in your organization. And I mentioned before, we see sort of core human skills and power skills being critical in certain roles. And then you see that the need to be able to learn on top of that. And then you need to be able to plug and play for the cutting edge change that's coming. Who are your key people that are going to be prepared and ready to take that new change on before it gets rolled out across the wider organization? So I think there's a series of steps from seek to understand, think about the diagnostic, then make sure you've got the right skills and capabilities in the organization, think about design of work, and then operate against that design of work.
And one thing I think we need to remember is bad news sells. Bad news generates more clicks on every social platform. That's why we see so much of it everywhere. But it is content that's being bombarded in every direction. So what would you say to that skeptic listening who still views AI adoption as maybe a direct threat to their job security within an industry?
Well, I think there's two ways to look at this. And I think it's actually an equal opportunity and threat. So, that I'm not saying that this technology is not going to replace any work, because I'm sure it will at times. But what I think it is it also creates opportunity to do higher order new roles. And actually, if you look at how we've changed over time as a race and how we've adapted to things, I think we will do so again. But one of the things that I would say is it's a big demand and supply gap. So we already talked about, we know about the AI change, but if you add to that the demographic cliff that's coming, in the fact that we're going to have more retirees, I think 10% of people are going to retire, more people are going to retire out of work in the next 5 years, and the world Health Organization has identified that I think it's 22% of the population is going to be retired versus 12% today by 2050. So we're seeing more people exiting the workforce than perhaps ever before, and that's creating a supply issue, right? So on one side, okay, jobs are getting automated, or there's not jobs, but parts of tasks are getting automated and roles are getting automated, which frees up capacity. But we're losing capacity because people are leaving the workforce. So actually, this is a supply and demand matching problem rather than a we haven't got enough demand for jobs. I think we're still going to have more demand for the number of people. It's just, are the people skilled correctly to be able to fulfill that demand? And so that's what it becomes really incumbent upon employers, I think, on governments and on individuals to take proactive action to help skill for the future requirements of work, rather than expecting people to just be able to do the change that comes to them. And that's to me the proactive action we have to all take.
100% with you. I think every employer has that responsibility to proactively, as you said, help their employees along the ride and ensure that nobody gets left behind. Equally, employees need to grab those opportunities. But as we look ahead, how do you see AI evolving the culture of learning inside an organization, especially in high pressure or fast-paced tech teams? Anything you're seeing there?
Yeah, I do. And actually, I'm going to answer this in two ways, Neil, because I think the first one sort of it touches a bit on the last comment we were talking about the responsibility of organizations. And I actually think there's going to be greater emphasis on building becoming a responsible employer and thinking about, okay, from a learning point of view, how does a responsible employer, get people up to speed when they land in that organization? Because frankly, the foundationary learning organizations aren't going to be able to keep up with the change that is applicable to each individual employer context. So how do you get people up to speed when they land? But perhaps more importantly, how do you maintain future ready skills with your workforce so that if you need to make a change, you can? And if people are to leave your organization, they can leave with future ready skills, allowing them to be employable elsewhere. I think that is what a future responsible employer is going to need. I think that's a part of the answer to the learning culture inside one organization. The other part of the answer, I think, is about how AI is impacting learning itself. And so how are those of us that create and work on and think about upskilling within corporate environments changing things? And I kind of, this is a personal view rather than a Pearson view, just to be clear, I see a bifurcation of learning. And what do I mean by that? I mean, at one end of the scale, I think we're going to see learning atomized down to tiny elements and amounts that are delivered at the point of need. So it will know what you're doing, understand the problem you face at that moment, and deliver you maybe minutes worth of insight to help you get over that problem and help you learn, help you sort of be successful in that moment. And at the other end of the spectrum, I think we'll see a need for high signal strength, qualification style, credential based, assessed levels of learning to say, I am qualified to do X or Y. So you can walk around and, turn up at an organization and have absolute clarity that you're qualified. And I think that's how I believe we'll see learning start to shift in the workplace with the evolution of AI.
Well, today we've talked about so much here, and obviously some of those eye-opening takeaways from your research at Pearson. So anyone wanting to dig a little bit deeper on that research and find out more information about what you're doing at Pearson's, where would you like to point everyone listening?
Yeah, thanks, Neil. So we list all of our research and insights within the Pearson, plc.pearson.com is the website, and it's in the insights section where all of our reports are. And obviously, if you want to look at any of our services, then that's all on our Pearson.com site as well.
Awesome. Well, I'll have links to everything, including a link to the report. And so much I've learned today about not just the technology and the hype and everything that goes with it, but how the average tech worker could actually reclaim nearly a full workday every week, not by working harder, but just by being more intentional in the tools that they're using and software, robotics, etc., using it more effectively and intentionally. But more than anything, thank you for shining a light on this and sharing your time with me today.
Thank you, Neil. It's been a pleasure to be here.
So the big question is, how can we all prepare for a future where AI is woven into every role? Not as a threat, but simply as a tool for progress. And I think today's conversation with Pearson gave us a clear signal that companies that thrive will be the ones that reimagine workforce development right from the ground up. And my guest today, he unpacked how job design must evolve in tandem with AI's capability. And with a growing need to equip employees with the skills to think critically, communicate clearly, and adapt continuously, I think Pearson's research not only quantifies the time savings that AI can deliver across technical roles, it also highlights the opportunity to repurpose that time for higher impact work, leadership, and innovation. And we also looked at today how learning itself is transforming, whether it's fast, just in-time content, or long-form credentials that signal long-term growth. The future of work does demand continuous education that's both flexible and strategic. But it's no longer just a HR issue. It is now a business imperative. So if your tech teams are already using AI tools daily, are you giving them the learning infrastructure to grow alongside that change? And if not, what would it take to build that culture now, or begin building that culture now, before that skills gap inevitably widens? As always, boss, give me a shout. As always, let me know. techblogwriter@outlook.com. Connect me on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, TikTok, any channel at Neil C. Hughes. Nice and easy to get hold of. But that's it today. So thank you, as always, for tuning in. I'll be back again very soon with another guest. Hit refresh on your podcast feed. There's probably one waiting for you already. All right. Speak with you all then. Bye for now.